All right, welcome back to America Talks Live. I'm Bill Tucker, filling in for J.D. Hayworth today. Joining me now is Newsmag's health editor and author of The Baby Boomer Survival Guide. He is Nick Tate. Nick, great to have you with us. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
There are a couple of things that I want to start, but I really want to talk about, but I want to start with Bill Paxton. He is was a very much beloved actor. People were used to seeing him on the screen recently every week. He was in an active, ongoing series. You could probably see him in Big Love repeats. He was somebody everybody knew. So when he died unexpectedly over the weekend from complications following heart surgery, he suddenly put a very real personal face for a lot of people on a very real, serious condition. And earlier this month, he had said to Alan Thicke, there are things that we can, we learn from these kinds of tragic deaths.
There's no doubt about it. It was a real shocker.
No, and it is.
At age 61, the fact that he was so young, I think, was the big surprise to folks. He was otherwise healthy. He did not have a great history of heart disease, but it really points up the fact that heart surgery is a serious procedure. And even though the big picture is that heart surgery has gotten safer over the years and over the decades, it still carries about a 1%, 2% risk of stroke and death. And unfortunately, that was the case that we saw with Bill Paxton.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what the statistics are if you're on the wrong side of those statistics. So all of these kinds of conversations, and like this one here, is how do we stay off that bad side? Are there things that people can do recognizing it's open heart surgery, so it carries an amount of risk to it? How can you minimize that risk, Nick?
There are ways you can minimize the risk. The most important thing to do is to make sure if you have to undergo heart surgery, make sure it's done at a procedure that the procedure is done at a facility that has a lot of experience doing them, has an ICU recovery center that is well staffed and has a doctor there all of the time. Make sure that your surgeon is someone who is a veteran and experienced and has done hundreds of these procedures. And maybe the most important thing is to make sure you really need the procedure. Get a second opinion before you even go in. And those are the things that nothing that is going to be perfect and guarantee that there will be no problems, but they will minimize those risks.
Yeah, and I think that that's something a lot of people kind of ignore because most of the time they're used to a doctor. And they come see Dr. Nick Tate, and Dr. Nick Tate says, well, you need to have this done. I don't think a lot of people's first reaction is, I'm going to go see Dr. Bill Tucker to see if I really need to have this done. They put a tremendous amount of faith and reliance on the physician, the surgeon they know. And this isn't about some kind of personal relationship, is it? This is about literally your life, and you do need to get a second opinion.
Exactly, and most doctors would welcome that kind of advocacy. You really, in today's healthcare system, you have to be your own advocate. You can't simply do what the doctor tells you. You can't simply do what the public health officials and the government tells you. You have to take control yourself, and getting a second opinion is part of that.
There's something you wrote about recently, and tell me about this. The new 4-in-1 pill to treat high blood pressure. It's kind of intriguing. Tell me about it, and there are a lot of questions I want to get into on it.
Well, it really is what researchers are describing as a kind of magic bullet to treat high blood pressure, which strikes about 1 in 3 Americans. What the Australian researchers did is they combined 4 available high blood pressure drugs into a single dose, a single pill. They took a quarter dose of each of those 4, and in one single pill, they gave it to a small number of patients and found that in virtually every case, those patients had a dramatic lowering in their blood pressure. In fact, it fell to the 140 to over 90 level that is considered safe. So not only did they find that it is more effective than a singular dose, but they found that by combining it, you reduce the potential side effects. So it really could be a game changer in treating this very, very common and dangerous condition.
Well, that kind of leads to the next question. Why did they take 4? Why did they do this 4-in-1? And you allude to side effects. What was the motivation?
Well, the reason the issue is for most people who take medication for blood pressure, it only works about half the time. That's because there's variability in the effectiveness of certain medications. Like any medication that you take, it may work more effectively for you than somebody else, or may work more effectively for someone else. So by combining these 4, they're really combining the power of these 4 different medications in smaller doses in a single medication, so that if one isn't going to work for you, maybe one of the other ones in that medication will work. So it really boosts the effectiveness, and at the same time, because the doses are smaller than you would get in a single dose, it cuts the risk of side effects, which can be significant. So it seems to me that one thing we need to let people know is that it was a very small number of patients that were involved in this study, 18. So more studies will be needed, but in fact, if it proves to be as effective in larger groups of people, it really could be a game changer. These are medications that are already determined to be safe and on the market and could very easily be combined into a single dose. And if we can do anything to really cut down the risk of heart disease, which is one of the things that happens with people with high blood pressure, we could really take a bite out of that #1 killer. Heart disease kills more people than cancer and any other condition in the U.S. So this could really move us forward.
Well, and there's another way we can fight heart disease as well, which is doing things, or otherwise known as workouts. But Newsmax Health is featuring an article touting work-free activities that we can do that get our exercises, get our muscles moving, get our heart going. Tell us about some of those.
Well, you know, the research that's coming out is really showing that sitting is kind of the new smoking in terms of heart disease and certain forms of cancer. And the answer for many people has been to go to the gym and spend hours huffing and puffing and sweating. But increasingly, studies are showing that you don't need to do that. Really, you can do some regular everyday activities, gardening, housework, walking the dog. These count and are as effective in combating heart disease and boosting your heart fitness and building your overall fitness as a regular 30-minute workout. The key is to do something for an aggregate of 30 minutes a day and get your heart rate up. The good news is you don't need to do it all at once. The other piece of research that is intriguing is you can do 10-minute bursts of exercise. So take a 10-minute walk, for instance. Count the amount of time that you're doing some housework in your home, and if it adds up to 30 minutes a day, it's as effective and maybe more easily done than a hard 30-minute workout at the gym. So the bottom line is do something. Get up. Don't sit on the couch and let sitting kill you.
Well, you know, it's really interesting. There's a side note. I have a history of back problems, and I can't tell you how many orthopedics have said to me, sitting is the worst thing that a human body can do because it was never designed to sit. So get up and in fact, move around. And I want to, there are now some stories out there talking about, well, you know, this Fitbit 10,000 step thing, it doesn't really work. It's arbitrary or what have you. But it does fit within your parameters of the idea of just setting a goal. Go do something. And whether it's 10,000 steps or whatever it is, define that goal and then fulfill it. That's really what you're saying, isn't it?
I think you're right. You know, the hardest, it's kind of a joke, but the hardest part of being active is really the first step, and that is lacing up your shoes. If you could just resolve to do it, count it, and make it a priority, you know, we should think of exercise the same way we think of eating and sleeping. It should be that much a part of what we do every day. And the good news about the latest research is that you don't have to block out 30, 40 minutes of time at a gym and really aggressively sweat and huff and puff. You really can get this exercise in everyday activities. But you got to be mindful of it, you got to be thinking about it, and you got to make it a priority. That's absolutely true.
Thank you, Nick. Really appreciate it. Words of wisdom, Nick Tate. Thank you very much. Now remember to keep it here on Newsmax TV for Howie Carr, Joe Pags, Steve Malzberg Show. And tonight, we'll be giving you live coverage of President Trump's address to the joint session of Congress. So stick around. You can always stay connected here at Newsmax TV.